let's start off by talking to the director and letting you just talk about yourself, talk about why you're here, what made you decide to come to Detroit, and just give us some information about yourself.
My name is Charles Brown. I've been here in Detroit for about 8 months now. My wife and my two young boys and I are loving it very much. We live over on the east side, and there's just so much to do and see here in Detroit. I've been in animal sheltering for over 20 years, started my career as actually law school dropout. I was in law school and working just as a kennel assistant, and really fell in love with animal sheltering and animal care and control. So I actually ended up dropping out of law school and pursuing this full time.
So let me just ask you a question. You say you've been doing this for over 20 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you regretted that you dropped out of law school to deal with the animals?
Not a day. Not a
day. And I'm sure the
No
animals
regrets.
have not regretted it either. And you have a lovely young lady sitting next to you. Who is that sitting next to you?
So this is Dana Eldritch. She is part of our team here at DAC, but she also serves another kind of unique role as she is vice president of kind of our sister organization, Friends of Detroit Animal Care and Control. And they do a lot of the things that the city just can't afford to do for us.
Oh, wow, and we truly appreciate that. We truly appreciate that. And let me tell you, I love that smile that you have. I love that smile. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
So I've been working here for over a year, and even before that I was a volunteer. Same kind of thing, I completely fell in love with animals in Detroit and trying to just help everywhere that I could. So it kind of became like a calling, like a passion, and that's one of the reasons why I'm on the board of Friends of Detroit Animal Care and Control as well, so that we can kind of brainstorm different ways that we can help out the animals in the shelter that maybe the shelter itself can't do.
And we truly appreciate you here and the Friends of in the city of Detroit.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm just going to ask a few brief questions just to give our residents some information. And so if a resident is no longer able to keep their dog for any reason, can you just talk to us about what they can do to make sure that their pets is taken care of and has a proper home?
Well, there's a couple different scenarios that do happen in animal sheltering. Sometimes things happen to folks that they just aren't prepared for, and those life events cause them to have to relinquish their pet, and they have to sometimes do so in kind of a hurried fashion. The Michigan Humane Society that's up the street from us takes in most of the owner relinquishes here in the city, and we deal with primarily the stray animals, the neglected and the cruelty cases. Having said that, we do owner relinquishments here. We do encourage folks to reach out to us prior, of course, to that, I'm moving or having a baby. Time is really your best friend when you're trying to, place your dog into another loving home. You want to make sure that you do give yourself enough time to make sure that transition is a good one.
And speaking of placing your dogs into a loving home, how many dogs can a person own or have in their household at one time?
So in the city of Detroit, you're allowed to have 4 adult dogs in your home at any time. Now that doesn't include puppies, but any dog that's over 4 months of age. So if you had a mother dog who had puppies, animal control is not going to say, oh my gosh, you got to get rid of your 8 puppies. So it is adult dogs, and it is 4.
It is 4, okay. And what should a responsible pet owner know about getting their dog sprayed or neutered?
Spaying and neutering is what it's all about, in my opinion. Any given day here, we have over 250 animals here, and that is absolutely a result of overpopulation. So if you're really not sure that you are going to have loving homes for all the puppies you're going to have, it is absolutely in your animal's best interest, as well as the city's best interest, to spay and neuter your animal. An unspayed or unneutered animal is going to roam. It is also 10 times more likely to bite than a sterilized animal. So for those 3 big reasons, spay and neuter your animals.
And so you just talked about biting. So let me ask you a question. Whose responsibility is it if a dog bites someone? Is it the owner's responsibility? Is it the person who the dog bite? Is it their responsibility? Whose responsibility is it?
So there are a few scenarios where actually that blame could be shared. However, for the most part, it is absolutely the owner's responsibility. We don't ticket dogs. We don't take dogs to court. We take owners to court. And so it is absolutely, I have dogs, huge dog lover. I love my dogs on my property. I don't love my dogs on her property. I'm a responsible owner. I keep my dogs on my property, and if anything were to happen and they were to bite somebody, I would be both civilly responsible and criminally responsible. So I would be looking at some problems. They could sue me personally, car, house, anything that, for retribution for the bite. And then criminally, we do press charges on negligent dog owners.
So let's talk about what a city dog license is and how does one obtain that city dog license?
So right now, the dog licenses we sell here, you can also go online to fill out the little application. We're trying to work with some local vets to make it even more convenient to get the dog licenses. If your dog is spayed or neutered, it's $10. If it's not spayed or neutered, it's $15. The license is good for 1 calendar year. So if you buy your tag in July, it's good until the following July. What it is, it does two things for us. One is it's an identification, so we know where that it is your dog, and it proves ownership for you. If your dog gets lost and it's a Pekingese sitting here and 3 people come in and say, "Oh, that's my dog," "Nope, that's my dog," and it's not chipped, a license is legal proof that you own the dog. It also helps get your dog back home if it's lost. And it serves as proof that your dog has been vaccinated against rabies. And that is a state law that all dogs must be vaccinated against rabies.
Is it illegal to leave your dog outside in the state of Michigan?
So it is not in and of itself illegal to have your dog outside. The things that are very important about that is how they're housed when they're outside, how long they're housed outside, and what kind of weather they're housed in. So on a 70-degree day and you have your dog in a fully fenced kennel and it's got shade, food and water, it can be out all day while you're at work. If it is tied to something, if it's tied properly with a proper tether, it can be tethered up to 3 hours a day.
Talk about what's proper.
So what is proper with tethering is there's 3 major factors. One is the length of the tether, which should be roughly 3 times the length of your dog. And then where it is affixed to the pole or post that the dog's affixed to, it needs to have a swivel on it so that the dog is unable to just wrap itself up and become stuck somewhere. The material itself can't be a logging chain, needs to be a covered plastic cord. Those things are certainly available relatively cheaply at Walmart and such. And actually, our officers always carry some of those with them so they can help residents that want to do the right thing but may either not have the education behind it or the resources to make it happen. So we do everything we can, and that's certainly where Friends of really kind of steps in, because they purchase and help outfit us with those things for our animal control officers.
So what if I need that for my animal, the animal control officer is out, do I need to ask the animal control officer? Does the animal control officer see what's going on in that situation and he offer it?
So typically, yeah, our officers absolutely are solution driven. So they're not going to simply come out and say, "Oh, this is wrong, here's a ticket." That's our last resort. Our first resort is to try to get the person to understand why it's important to do it. And sometimes it just takes that 5 minutes of explaining, "Oh my goodness, what would happen if the dog did this and then choked itself to death or, got stuck?" And then all of a sudden you see a light bulb in folks' eyes and they realize, "Oh boy, yes, this is the thing that I should be doing." Most people out there, I mean, we deal with the good and the bad, and it's easy to get overwhelmed with all the bad. But the reality is the bad is a very little part of what we do. Most dog owners love their dogs and are responsible dog owners. And the ones that may not be quite as responsible as you'd like, it's usually a matter of just explaining, educating, and not in a condescending, but in a helpful way. And usually that resolves the situation. And then there is obviously, unfortunately, that element that just is doing the wrong thing and doesn't care that they're doing the wrong thing, and that's why we do have the enforcement arm.
So, you know, you just mentioned two things. You mentioned loving your dog and caring about your dog. Let's talk about I love my dog so much, and I take my dog every place I go. But what I see a lot is how people are driving with their dogs. People treat their animals like they're their babies, and they love them. Is it legal to drive with your dog in the front seat?
So it is legal to drive with your dog in the front seat. However, the dog must be secured. It must be tethered or seat belted in. The thing that you got to remember is that's a projectile. I have a 2-year-old. I don't let him bounce around my car. He's in a car seat. He's properly tethered. And the dog should be the exact same way. Distracting driving obviously is a big deal, and we encourage folks that, you know, if you are taking your best friend with you and it happens to be your dog, that he should be buckled up too. And we also encourage folks in very hot weather and very cold weather. Obviously, maybe you should leave the dog at home because it's too cold or too hot to stay in the car.
I have literally seen people driving with their dog in their lap.
I have too, and I
as
cringe.
they are driving.
I cringe.
Yeah, I mean, they love their animals just that much till they're driving. And I'm saying, who's driving? Is the dog driving or is the person driving? So that's why I wanted to just make sure people understand that it is very important that you have your dog cared for properly,
Absolutely.
as you would a baby.
Exactly.
While you're in that car. Let's talk about fostering a dog. If you need to foster a dog, can you talk about that?
We have some great programs, and I am going to lean it over to Dana.
So we would love everyone to come foster a dog. That's one of the initiatives that Friends of Detroit Animal Care and Control took on, was to begin a foster program. You can absolutely come down, take a look at our available dogs, and then we encourage you to take them home for one night. It's our slumber party program. It's a good way to get information about the dog to help it become more adoptable, even if you are not going to adopt it. If it interacts with your kids and does well, if it interacts with your cat and does well, all of these really help us place that dog into its perfect forever home if it's not with you. If it is with you, you can always foster just to kind of make sure that that's a good fit for your family. And then we can have you fill out the adoption paperwork the next day, maybe a couple days later, if you want to take a little bit more time to see if it's a good fit.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And because people are also often not used to having that dog, and they're out and they're walking that dog, should they have a poop scooter? Let's talk about that.
Yes, you do have to pick up after your dog no matter where they go. So if you're out on a walk or you're in a store like Petco or PetSmart, we always recommend you carry a couple bags. Even a grocery bag works. Just make sure it doesn't have holes in it before you put your hand in it. But yes, you do have to pick up after your dog. A lot of parks now have kind of gotten the hint and put those dispensers and trash cans out for dog owners, but you should always be prepared with your own supplies.
So let's talk about vaccinations and shots that are required for the dog. Can you just give?
Absolutely. The only vaccine that is required by law is the rabies vaccine, and that's connected to the licensing of the dog. But for proper protection, we strongly recommend at least a 3-way, which would be protecting your dog against parvo, lepto, and distemper. Those are the 3 most common elements that can befall a dog. So that would be the bare minimum, the rabies and the 3-way. The 3-way shot is only good for a year. The first rabies shot, only good for 1 year. After that, you can get 3-year rabies shots through your vet. Here, we offer $10 rabies shots. So we do offer at-cost rabies services.
Wonderful. And that was going to be my next question. What is the cost of those? And so all of the shots basically are the $10?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the things that Friends of also does is we do pop-up clinics. So they'll set up in a park or at a precinct or something and invite the public free of charge to come in and have their dogs inoculated.
Okay. So let's talk about stray animals. It doesn't seem like the weather's gonna warm up anytime soon, but we know,
Yeah.
hopefully, prayerfully, eventually we are going to have that warm weather. And there's going to be a lot of stray animals out there. Can you give some information if people encounter stray animals, what they should do?
Absolutely. We have, obviously our teams work tirelessly to try to collect the strays and keep them from harm. A lot of people don't appreciate that a stray dog may pose a risk to a person, but frankly, it poses a greater risk to itself. Starvation, getting hit by a car, disease, those kind of things. So it is important that, when folks see a stray dog, to give us a call and report it, because we do obviously go out and pick up strays, but we patrol and we keep an eye on things. So the more information we have, the better it is. We really encourage folks. We're working on a platform right now that they'll be able to send it through email, through phone, and we're hoping to get it linked into a text ability as well.
How can you properly secure your dog?
Well, what we recommend is a kennel, if you're talking about outdoor kennel. One of the things that I see people making the mistake of, and again, just best practices, is when I've set up outdoor kennels, I will bury them about 2 inches down into the ground, which will prevent them from trying to dig under it. And I also encourage, depending on your dog, to have a cover over the kennel so they can't just climb out of it, which dogs will climb and dogs will dig under. 3 consecutive hours is the length that people are allowed to have their dog tethered.
If you have your dog on a chain on the porch or on a banister on the porch, can you talk about what you call secure with having that dog on the porch?
So one of the things, being on a banister on a porch is unfortunately a very bad idea. I mean, I understand that it can be a great thing for protection and kind of sway people from wanting to come up to your porch. But because of the levels, even here, since I've been here, we've had several cases of dogs strangling themselves because they have jumped over a banister because of the multi-level. So you really want that dog, if you're tethering it, to be on flat ground. You want the post to be secure. You want the dog to be able to go 360 degrees around that with a swivel so it can't tie itself up.
Okay, there are tethering laws, and so if someone violates those laws, there has to be fines.
Yes.
Can you talk about the fines for violating?
So it is up to $500. We write misdemeanor tickets for Chapter 6, and it's ultimately up to a judge to determine exactly what that amount will be, but the misdemeanor tickets that we write are up to a $500 fine.
And that could also be for mistreating.
Absolutely.
For mistreating the pet.
Neglect, absolutely. We're here at 7401 Chrysler Service Drive. We're open to the public 7 days a week, 10:30 to 3:30. We're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for adopters, and we really encourage folks just to come out and see what's going on.
In addition to our official city website, we have our nonprofits website, which is friendsofdacc.org. We're on Facebook at Friends of Detroit Animal Care and Control. DACC has its official Facebook page at Detroit Animal Care and Control.